Now let's take a look at the concept of your charge level. So we all know that our phone will clearly tell us what charge level it has. And if it's on red, if it's on 5%, it needs to be charged fast, otherwise it's not going to work. So human beings, we're the same way. We just don't have clear reporting like a phone does. So how this works with the color scale is that if we're on a low charge, we're in the red. If we're on a high charge, if we're feeling good, we're well rested, well nourished, well aligned with our work, it's like us being at a full charge. And so throughout our day, our charge level will fluctuate. And so really the game here is identifying what charge level you're at. Say it's the afternoon on a Tuesday, okay? Where are you at that moment? And what tasks do you have ahead of you to finish your day with? And the idea here is to navigate your day so that you can have the highest charge level possible in each activity. Now, it's not something to stress you out about. That's the opposite. So you don't want to be stressed about like, oh, I got to be on 100% all the time, otherwise I can't do anything. That's not the case. So it's more about, okay, how can I bring the highest charge of myself, the highest on the color scale, to each activity? Doing the best with what I've got. Because sometimes if you're cleaning up a lot of yellow, like you got to work with what you got, and it depends on the systems that you have around you. So it's not always going to be perfect, but it's just this idea of like, okay, how can I position the task? How can I position myself so that I'm bringing the fullest energy possible to this task, the fullest mental clarity, the fullest drive possible. So let's take a look at a few examples because this is so important. Because this will either spiral a business up or spiral it down. Because if we're on red and we're bringing that energy to a task, it's going to lead to a number of things that'll spiral us down. So for example, if it's taking you longer to do the task, you're in a grumpy mood, you're interacting with people, you're short with them, you're not bringing new ideas and energy, that just propagates throughout your business and your relationships. And that leads to things and problems and drama and fire that just pulls a business down. Conversely, if you're able to identify like, oh, I'm kind of operating at a low charge level, and you're able to say, okay, what are my tools to deal with this? And then future videos we'll go through different tools, and you can find what works best for you. So you say, okay, let me do A and B, and you boost your charge level up. Maybe you go full green, and then you go into that task, those interactions that you have with people. You're bringing positivity. You're excited. Your heart neurons are feeling good. Open up, and boom! All of a sudden, there's momentum flowing in the business in a positive way, which helps it spiral upwards. And so that's what we're going to take a look at a few examples here, because I used to be the exact opposite with this. So in my web design days, all I knew was just work longer. And that to me meant work harder. So I would put in all these hours, but I had no idea that, hey, my 10th hour of work in the day is different than my first hour of work in the day. There's a decline in mental resources. I didn't realize that. I just thought 1 hour of work was 1 hour of work. So Nicholas would tell me, hey, there's definitely a difference between quantity versus quality. It's not about quantity, he'd say. It's about quality. It's not about the amount of hours you work. It's about the amount of energy you put into each hour that you work. And it took me a while to realize that because I didn't have this structure. And once I finally realized it was like a charge level, then it clicked with me. And I really ran with it, especially in my SEO company, which came after the web design days. I was like, okay, how can I make sure that these couple hours of work that I'm going to do, I'm going to be rolling with it. I'm going to be charged up with it. And I didn't have the color scale back then, but I just instinctively felt that. And what that allowed me to do is have higher quality work instead of those days that I used to have in the web design days where maybe it was the 10th or 15th or 16th and I'm just like fried and I'm just barely, staying awake, but I would just grind it through and push through. And what I knew back then too, I was like, it's taking me twice, 3 times as long to get these things done that in the beginning of the day, I would just zip right through them. So this whole idea is to stop the behavior where a person is taking 2 to 3 times longer to do the same thing, because then, they're grouchy about it. They wasted time. That's time away from their loved ones and family, time away from taking care of their body. That's time away from recharging and relaxing and enjoying life. All these things stack up in the wrong direction. So Naval talks about this too. He says, as a human species, we're closer to the carnivore development than the herbivore development. And what that means is that we're more like how a lion hunts, where it's preparing, explosion, sprint energy, and then it's rest, recovery, enjoyment. And I've really found that to be very similar to working in the green, where it's these just experiences of just intense flowing action, and then it's done. And instead of trying to force it through when the energy's not there, then it's like, okay, that amount of energy was done, so let's recharge, relax, recuperate, and prepare for the next one. And he goes on to say that, really the 9 to 5 is built for robots, of just like doing the same task over and over and over again, because that's under the assumption that the outcome of your work each hour will stay constant and will stay the same throughout the full day. When we know that's not true. There's ups and downs, and there's navigating the different flow based on the task, based on the person. So this is evolving past the linear framework that is outdated and incorrect, that we just produce the same thing each hour, and really evolving to the next step, which is, okay, let's navigate our day and our tasks so that we're bringing as high of a charge level as possible to each of these tasks. And Naval speaks of it as like it's a mental athlete. If we look at like a physical athlete, we're not going to expect them to perform at game speed 9 hours a day. Now, of course, there's exceptions with triathletes and things like that. Yet there's these, no matter what athlete it is, there's distinct time for rest and recovery. And mentally in the business realm, we're just not really taught that from the beginning. And he equates it as being like a mental athlete. So if you're running a business and running your forever business, I'd even say it's like a mental, emotional, spiritual athlete, that you're combining these different things together. So it really is important to have the rest and recovery, just like a physical athlete. And Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist, he has a really good way of saying like the importance that he's seen in the research for rest for brain development. Because he says human beings were constantly focused on duration, path, and outcome, meaning how long is this thing going to take, or how long until I get this thing. That's duration. Number two, the path. What's the path to get this thing that I want, or what's the path that I'm on right now? Okay, these things are always going on in the brain. And then the outcome. So what's this thing that I want, or what's this thing that I don't want? And those three things are taking up our mental resources all the time, especially being a business owner, where we need to create clear boundaries in our life for work and for recharge. And the better we do that, the more our charge level flows in our work. And he specifically talks about that's why it's so important for the brain, literally, to get a break from the computing process of duration, path, outcome. Because when it gets a break from that, then there's certain processes that happen in the brain that restore it, so that there's better thinking processes that go on. And the interesting thing is that we'd say, okay, well, sleep is a part of this. Sleep is a big part of this. A lot of it happens in sleep. And as we know, sometimes it follows us in our dreams. So what I've found to be the number one rest and recovery to increase charge level fast is TM, which I'll talk about in a future video just coming up here. It's a bonus recommendation, because what it does is allows you to just kind of pull the plug on the part of your brain that's always processing, which is actually the prefrontal cortex, that it's doing all this processing. It just pull the plug on that, and it goes down, and then allows the restorative processes in the brain and in the nervous system to recharge the body really, really fast. I'll get into that a little bit later. Other things like human design. So if you're a projector, it's even more important to take a look at this, because a projector in the human design system doesn't have the same level of continuous drive energy as a generator or a manifesting generator. So that's just a little bit precise thing. If that's a projector for you, be extra vigilant of this. And your day structuring. So I've talked about this a little bit in the Asana video. Right brain morning, left brain afternoon. This is what I find to be best for me. Sometimes this can change, so find what's best for you. Standing versus sitting. That's what I found too, is that taking different calls, standing gives me more energy, gives me a higher charge level, both during the call and then also after it as well. So find what works best for you to have these charge level. And then kind of like a bonus thing too is what I've found after I do Decode Your Genius sessions with people or presenting one-on-one or to group, I'm in a green and a blue state. So I take advantage of that and I say, okay, what ideas or challenges like do I want some ideas to? And after the session, I just kind of hang out and do those by myself. And then what I found is that since I'm in that state, those green and blue ideas flow through and it's fantastic. It's like, oh, this is great. So that's just kind of a little bonus thing for you, whatever puts you in that green or blue state. And it's like, oh, might as well get some ideas there as well since you're there. So that's what I've got for you in this video, and I'll see you in the next one.